Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lunar Counseling Podcast. I am joined today by the awesome Dr. Kimberly Richards. She is a licensed psychologist, certified in EMDR, and she is dedicated to helping individuals achieve meaningful, lasting change, which is in evidence-based, trauma-informed techniques that blend compassion, insight, and practical strategies tailored to each client. She has extensive experience working across outpatient, community, and multidisciplinary healthcare settings, which is super cool. Her clinical focus includes trauma, PTSD, anxiety disorders, life transitions, relationship challenges, and some spiritual aspects as well. As a certified EMDR therapist, she integrates EMDR to help clients process distressing experiences and build emotional resilience. And she's known for her warm, grounded presence by creating a safe, inclusive, therapeutic environment where clients feel understood, supported, and empowered from the very first session. She blends CBT techniques with mindfulness informed practices, EMDR, and psychodynamic insights to support deep, lasting healing. And for fun, outside of therapy, she also supports professional education and does community mental health outreach, and she stays current with research, psychology, and balancing she values balance, curiosity, and lifelong learning. And she brings all that into her work with every client. But she's definitely a well-rounded therapist, and she's been in the field for a long time, so she knows the ins and outs. So welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Like I asked everyone, what brought you to being a therapist?
A happy accident. And most people are like, how does that happen when a doctoral degree takes 5 or 6 years and all this other stuff? I was volunteering in the fire department as a high school student, and I was really into fire science. And so I wanted to be an arson investigator. The quick version is I'm horrible at chemistry. My undergrad was a very small women's liberal arts school, and the department chair of the chemistry department basically went and asked for feedback on how to not completely crush my spirit, but guide me in a different direction.
Oh,
Yeah, at the department chair meeting. So the entire school knew this was a problem, which was a little embarrassing, but at the same time, psychology and sociology were like, send her over here to the social sciences. She's really good at that. And I went, yeah, but you can't make any money with like, that's not a career that like you can just do. So I was like, I'll be a business major, business psychology, religious studies, and art history. Graduated. My advisor at the time was like, hey, you need to go pursue your master's. And at the time, there were 3 schools in the US with forensic psychology degrees, one in New York, one in California, one in Texas. And I was like, Texas has things that want to kill me. No, thank you. California has earthquakes. No, thank you. New York is close enough. We'll try that. My first semester was 9/11. So Texas probably would have been safer. So I ended up going through the program, finished that, and then got done and was like, now I have a master's degree. I ended up working in the prison system for 8 years. And during that time, I was like, okay, I guess I'll go back to school for a doctorate. So ironically, I got a different position in the prison at the same time that I got accepted into my doctoral program. I had to postpone that a little bit. And then I went through working full time in the prison, going to school full time for my doctorate, finishing that up. And then I was like, oh, I really like this. I did community mental health for probably, I think, 4 or 5 years. And then I was in a very large group, like 100 plus clinician group practice for another 4 or 5 years. And then I was in a federally qualified health center for about a year. And then I went into private practice. So, yeah.
wow. I cannot imagine being in New York at 9/11. Just seeing it on TV whenever was happening was traumatic. And like just to even be in the state. Cool. How close were you to ground zero?
So my school it was John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which I think is considered, it's west of Central Park. So it's more kind of up from where that was. I was actually commuting. So I was ironically, and you will actually love this, my sister's dog would not come in the house. So I was delayed leaving for school. If I had gotten the dog in the house, if she hadn't done that morning, I would have been in the tunnel going into New York when the first plane hit. Yeah.
Oh my God. Talk about like s- signs in the universe saying you do not need to be there to fight that.
And so when
Wow.
I was hurrying and my now husband called me, and we were dating at the time, and he called me and you have to turn around. You can't go to school. But the school has a policy where you don't get to miss. Like if you have more than two absences, like you're expelled.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I can't not go to school. And you don't understand. This is what's going on. And I'm like, it's not on the radio. It's not on this. It's not on that. But the station he was listening to was broadcasting from New York, where the station I was listening to was broadcasting out of Philadelphia. So I wasn't hearing what was happening because it hadn't hit the airwaves yet. So I was actually between Pennsylvania and New Jersey when the second plane hit. I think I was on the bridge. So I was already like on my way. So I actually went to my aunt and uncle's house and stayed there because I was like, do I try to go back over the bridge? And I was like, I should probably go find out what's going on. And that did suck.
Yeah. Wow. Like, I'm assuming, I should probably should assume, but I'm hoping that your school was like completely understanding why you didn't go to school that day.
My school was very understanding about a lot. So unfortunately, John Jay is also the fire academy and police academy for the city of New York. So that day there were over 300 students and staff that were lost. Yeah.
Oy.
Yeah.
That,
So it was definitely a challenge for those 2 years.
yeah, I can only imagine. So you were in New York, like during all that aftermath, trying to get your master's, living life, like doing school and dating and navigating like, the chaos of the world at that time. That sounds super crazy. So how did that like influence your desire to get into trauma?
I think that I always had a pull towards trauma because I think back to even when I was volunteering with the fire company. So out here where I live, every fire department's volunteer. We don't have paid fire companies. When we would go, I was always more concerned about the emotional health of the people. So, okay, physically you're okay, but let's also deal with like something happens to a parent and the kids are scared, making sure the kids are taken care of, that nurturing kind of components. They always laugh because they were like, you're such a mama hen. Even at 16, 17 years old, they're like, you're such a mama hen that you're like taking care of these kids. So it came naturally to want to help people not have that hurt because there were so many losses in my community, in my school, connected to me or through friend groups that I really was like, primed in a way to help people through trauma. So then when that happened, it was very painful for the just in the fact that the hallways were so empty and everything. But I think at that point I was already more geared towards the forensic psychology side of things with criminal profiling and that layover with the legal system. And it just morphed into more of the PTSD, the trauma. A lot of my clients that I work with have either some form of sexual abuse or childhood sexual abuse or physical abuse, neglect, those kinds of things. So I'm doing a lot of those kinds of cases. Having had these experiences, I think I can relate to people at a different level and there's healing on the other side. So I think that's a big part too, is that there is healing. Like it's not
Yeah.
PTSD is forever. It's let's heal some of this stuff. So I think there's hope in that consistently across the board. And just
Yeah.
in seeing how people were healing through 9/11 and what that looked like. And even I did get to work with some 9/11 survivors from the towers. Ironically, not in New York. It's in a totally different state. And I think that in and of itself was very healing to be able to share a little bit of those stories to have an understanding, to really have that connection, I think was helpful too.
My mom used to do recruiting for her work, and she was talking to a guy who he worked in the towers, and if he hadn't gone for a smoke break, whenever he did, he would have been trapped with his coworkers. And it's like just those crazy happenstances.
Correct. And then because my now husband stopped me from going further up into the city, because I was still dead set on I have to go to class. And he was like, your school doesn't have class. There's a crisis. I actually became the point of contact for my friend's family because they couldn't contact each other. So they could call out to me and I could relay messages to the other family members of where they were and how they were trying to get back home from being in Manhattan into the other boroughs and where, okay, I've heard from this person. I've heard from this person. This one's walking across this bridge. This one's here. This one's only made it to here. I went immediately into a triage position and that communication hub. So I had to do my own work around that in terms of like the impact of that loss and everything because I didn't have time to process because I got thrown immediately into handling it.
Yeah,
And so I think that's part of it, but that's also part of the training as a volunteer firefighter is you're in the situation, you handle it.
that's true. Like it's like you can't break down whenever you're trying to save someone's life. This goes back to the mama hen piece with a lot of things.
I was wise enough at a younger age to realize that I had to step away from the fire company, not because I didn't want to help people, but because I realized that I couldn't help people this way if I was doing that kind of work because it was so damaging. So I miss it at some level, but at another level, I know that was my path.
You need the experience to learn and have understand how to handle the situations. But yeah, definitely saying that long term would have been like, oh, I can only imagine. Because yeah, like Pennsylvania, most of the firefighters are like volunteer, unless you're like in a big city like Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. But my friends, her husband's on it, and the town that we live in, and it's like all the stories that she shares. I'm like, oh,
It's some heavy stuff.
yeah,
You're dealing with people who are in a very vulnerable situation, lots of emotions, usually a lot of fear, pain. So you're dealing with rawness.
yeah. Do you have a lot of people that are in the first responder community come see you?
I would say I don't have as many first responders as I do corrections. So I think having worked in the prison for 8 years, I tend to attract more corrections officers into my practice than I really do the volunteer firefighting. I think that's one of the things that probably is a hindrance for some people coming into therapy. That, and I think there's like admitting you're not handling all of what you've seen. And there's so much of what emergency responders see, whether firefighters, EMS, even emergency room staff, like the things that they all see, it has an impact. Police officers, all of that, medics. And I think that's part of the code is we'll have this dark humor around certain things, but we're not really going to talk about it. And I think
Yeah,
that EMDR can be really helpful for folks because you don't have to talk about everything. And one of the things that I talk about all the time with EMDR is it's like you have a pot on the stove and it's boiling over. And EMDR is you go up and you turn the heat off, but it's also with pot holders moving that to the back burner. And the pot is the memory, but the water is the emotion and it loses its heat and it loses its intensity and it starts to settle. And you still have the memory, but it's moved to the back. Intrusive, it's not as impactful. And I hope that's helpful for people when they think about EMDR. That's what the process is that's happening.
yeah. I love that analogy. I never heard it put that way, but you're right. Like it definitely does essentially turns down the dial so that it's not as loud anymore.
Now, with my veteran clients, they actually process out loud through the entire thing. So that was an interesting aside because I expected them to not really talk. And a bunch of them have talked through the entire process.
Oh,
And I'm like, don't listen, don't visualize. Because tend to see things in pictures and I'm like, I don't need to see these pictures. Like I can hear what they're saying, but I don't to memorize it. I don't have to hold all of that. Okay, some of it's really graphic detail. I'm like, I don't have to hold that and keep it. So I turn off my visual screen and just use the auditory for that. So it's not as intense.
Yes, that's definitely good. It's okay. I really don't need to be picturing all that. So cool.
And that was
Mhm.
actually, I learned in prison that I do tend to see things as a video in my head. And somebody tells me a story, like I see the entire story play out like it's a movie, which really primes me to be a good candidate for EMDR. With that being said, I had to learn how to turn it off because we had to listen to the inmates' versions of their crimes. So I had to learn to turn it off. And so
Yeah.
that's helpful. It's a good skill set to learn.
Yeah. That's, I can only imagine like hearing all the things. And because I work with trauma too, my clients also have the same like childhood sexual abuse and other physical abuse things too. And hearing those, them just can come into my head. I'm like, I can hear you. I can listen and understand, but I don't want to see it because then it just makes me want to cry because it's not my, they're not here to hold space for my emotions. I'm here to hold space for theirs.
Right.
So
And I think that's part of it is like when you do good self care as a clinician, you have that capacity to hold that space for those clients in a way that's supportive to them. And it's really about being able to take care of yourself so that you can do that, but also releasing and clearing out some of that stuff at the end of the day or even the end of the session.
do you, so speaking of like the clearing out piece, do you have any usual like rituals or self care things that you do for clearing out this space?
I only do teletherapy, so I keep everybody in this space. I don't wander around my house with a laptop or anything. So I leave everybody here. At the end of the day, I think about almost like a light stream of clearing everybody's energy out. So for those folks who don't know light stream, it's pretty much this visualization of bringing light in through the top of your head and washing out any of the ick from your body. So I do that before I leave the office. And I intentionally leave everybody in the office and shut the door. Like, okay, you guys, I'll see you in your next session. Have a good night. And I shut the door. So there is a physical barrier between this space and the rest of my house. And
That's so cool.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it way more helpful.
Yeah. I should start doing that. And I didn't learn like the visual like light thing through EMDR. I learned it through more hypnosis
Okay.
and doing it that way. That's how I learned it. But yeah, like it's definitely like imagining like going through you and yeah, clearing up the stuckness and having it be released in whatever way it makes sense for you, whether it's going through your feet down to the earth or coming out from your head and going out to the air, whatever makes the most sense for you.
For me, it's usually a washing kind of down and through my feet and out. But I have done it the other way where it's out of the top of the head if a client needs it that way. But me personally, I prefer to shower, rinsing it all off.
That's what I do at night. I take a shower and I imagine rinsing it off. I have the water potentially cleanse their energy off of me.
Yeah.
I like that's like really cool. I like that. Is that a lamp or is that like a diffuser behind you?
This,
Yes.
that is a lamp.
Okay. It looked like a could be like a diffuser because there's little holes around it. But I see some oils behind you.
Yeah.
Those in your practice at all?
Here's my diffuser. I do. I have some clients who honestly are so anxious that the anxiety gets in the way of processing with EMDR. So for some of them, I've offered them the opportunity to do work with the essential oils. And I'm certified in aroma freedom therapy or aroma freedom techniques. I've been certified for, I don't know, years at this point. But it's really being able to use the essential oils in a way that helps unlock similar patterns in the limbic system. So the PET scans, then the data is limited for this, but it lights up the same as what we expect with EMDR and with REM.
Oh, cool.
So it seems like it's working on the same areas, that limbic system and moving things around. And so the clients who have been really super anxious, they actually prefer the aroma piece because it literally is a matter of being like inhaling and being able to just let your brain process through certain things as you're smelling these scents in. And there there's a certain sequence. I've had to tweak the sequence of oils because the one oil blend actually was triggering for all of the military that I was working with, veterans, and even first responders. They were like, this smells like burning rubber. And I was like, "This doesn't smell like burning rubber." And then I was like, "But okay, I get that it has like a weird smell to it." And I took it to my husband and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's burning rubber." And I was like, "Okay, let's find something that's not burning rubber." That works in a similar way. And so I've been able to tweak it in a way to help people. For some of my folks, they already have the oils. For some people, put together like one time, like, I'll send you this. I want to say it was like 10 or $15. They're just purchasing like that, the set that they need. They don't have to go into any of the other places and find stuff. Cause a big thing with the oils, and I think you probably use oils based on what I looked at with your website, but it's
little
making
bit.
sure you're not inhaling things that have like solvents and bad stuff for your brain in them. So I don't
Yeah.
want to get into all the chemistry because we already know I'm not great at it. But I'm actually better at the chemistry with essential oils than I ever was with anything else. So I probably could have figured it out eventually, but probably not for arson. It's really being able to help them process through using different smells to shift from that troubling memory to childhood to releasing to and growing and all of that. So it's a very interesting process. And certain people are like, yes, they're down for it. And other people are like, yeah, let's try the EMDR. And it's just another option.
Yeah. But I think that's so cool. And I use oils personally more than I do like with clients, even though I have like my little essential oil roller right next to me for immune support. Because it's the time of year. But I think that's so cool too, because like you're right. Some people just get so anxious, they get so in their head that EMDR isn't always like the best option at the time. And that's why I like if I got certified in hypnosis too. It's like people can get so relaxed with hypnosis that they can process better than with EMDR.
The first workshop I went to, I was convinced. I was fresh out of EMDR training and I was convinced there was no way this stuff was going to work. And I went into this workshop with the whole premise of I'm going to prove how this doesn't work. And I came home and I was telling my husband about it. And he goes, so just do the certification and don't do all the intro stuff. Just go straight for certification because you know you're going to use it. And I was like, are you sure? And he's, yeah. And that was, yeah. So I went and did the certification and it was good.
How'd you find out about it? If you went in with the intent of proving it wrong, like how'd you even find it?
It was at a conference I was at for, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was a conference, I think, connected to offerings from Young Living. And it was one of the workshops. And I really was like, I'm going to this to prove how it doesn't work. And I was like, I think it does. And they picked somebody from the audience just randomly. And I got to watch this woman go through the whole process. And I was like, so of course I bought the book. I read the book, I figured it out, and I was trying it on myself. And then my poor husband's a guinea pig. So I was trying it on him. I'm like, oh, there really is something to it. And that's when he was like, just do the certification. Just do it. I was like, okay.
So like with the essential oils piece, are you also more in like the spiritual side of things too with like your folks? You ever bring that up then?
For a lot of my folks, yes. One of the patterns that I'm seeing, or one of the newer occurrences happening, is that a lot of my folks are coming in and newer clients are coming in and questioning whether they have things like psychosis or schizophrenia. And it's really like when we explore, it's more connected to this idea of spirituality. For a lot of my folks, they'll say demonic oppression, where they're not possessed, like what we, I think, is going to happen. But it's more they're struggling with feeling that they're being tortured, that there's stuff, there's like spiritual stuff coming against them. And so it's working through that. And that's been very interesting because there's not a ton of information out there. And you really have to start digging down through some rabbit holes to get additional information. And I feel bad saying this, but I've referred folks like to their religious, whoever their folks are, and they're getting turned away. They're being told like this is a mental health issue. And so I think there's something that's definitely going on where it's not. And part of it is I did work exclusively with clients with schizophrenia for the first 5 years of my career. It's the presentation's not the same, totally different. And so it's this, there's something happening that's coming up more and more. And I think you didn't say this, but I feel like maybe you're getting that same sense or seeing it in your own practice. And then it's, I think people don't have the language to talk about it, but it's also people not having the awareness of what else it could be. It's not just anxiety. There's other sensory things happening. So they tend to lean towards must be like a psychosis or it must be schizophrenia or I must be this is not me saying it, but I must be crazy because these things are happening and I can't explain it. And so there's this extra layer of, okay, we're now dealing with spirituality at a different level. And what does that look like?
Yeah. And it's so true. And like I have been seeing it in my practice with some of my clients too. And I've also been dabbling like with crystals and using them for healing and energy cleansing. And I did it once with a client and she was going to a spot where she always felt oppressed and she felt like she doesn't like she just be there if the bad things happen every time she goes there. We did it a cleansing, we did protection with it. And she went there and I felt so much better going there this time than I have in years. And it's really is like just being open to other possibilities, not just being like so in my head, in my mind, like Western focus, because there's always like schizophrenia, having these diagnosable things going on whenever it could just be energy, like spiritual oppression, like coming on where you can just like clear out the stuckness in different ways and just being open to those things.
And I think for a lot of folks, it's just even being able to have the conversation, being able to tell somebody else, like, this is what's actually happening and not have them look back at you like you're nuts. Something's really wrong here. And it's not saying that something isn't wrong. It's just wrong in a different realm.
Yeah, and I think it's just part of it too, because a lot of people like are having these experiences, but because there's stereotypes, there aren't therapists out there that are open to that side of things. That it's hard for them to talk about it. I currently have a younger client, and she's opened up to me about some things. And like, you're not crazy. And she's, I can't, I've been afraid to tell someone this because everyone thought I would be crazy. I'm like, no, I don't think you're crazy. Let's work on it together. And the relief off her shoulders when she was like, oh, you understand me was huge. The fact that you have your good clients and be like, I can tell you this and not be seen as crazy, I think
Oh,
is huge.
yes. And I think for a lot of folks, just having somebody who can go, okay, tell me more about that. What is that experience like? And it's not immediately, here's a diagnosis. It's let's talk about what is that? What does that look like? How is it impacting you? What's the impact on your day to day, on your sleep, on your work, on your relationships? What's happening? Where is it showing up the most? So I think that's part of it too. And
Yeah.
then it's also offered the opportunity to bring in a lot of different other things into practice. So for my clients who tend to be more Christian based, it's okay, here's some of that piece too. So that's been an interesting twist in the last, I would say that's really been in the last like year and a half, where people are like, do you have a Bible verse? Do you have this? Do you have that? How does this fit? And it's interesting because there's such an integrative process in this with the spirituality and a pull towards more natural healing. So these are people who want that spiritual aspect, that what is that Bible verse? What is that? Like, how do I use this? What direction do I go? But they also are like, can I support my health with oils or nutrition or
Mhm.
and things like that? And so I have a certification in integrative mental health, but I get to do all of that with them too. So there's a lot that goes with it. But I think back to you asked about how I became a psychologist. And I was like, as I was saying, and I was like, whoa, I really do use so much of what I went to undergrad for.
Because like you really can heal the body and heal your clients in just numerous ways, not just like talking about it or like medications. It's like really deep whole body healing, which is so cool.
And so to me, I'm like, all right, let's figure that out. And so for a lot of my clients, they're looking for more holistic, more integrative approaches. And so it's really, hey, can we look at what are you eating? Can we, and it's never, for me, it's never, okay, let's eliminate this whole food group. It might be, I might say, can we cut back on the coffee, but can we add this thing in and see how you do? And so most of my clients are happier with a let's add this in versus we have to take everything away and start from scratch. And
Yeah.
so I'm really like, all right, let's see, how do you do with this? And then let's give it a week or 2 or 3, and then adding in if there's something else that needs to be added in. And for a lot of my clients, they're like, I'm feeling so much better. I don't need to drink 12 Diet Cokes.
I have some clients I work with like at food issues, and it's okay. So let's make the snacking healthier. So if you want to have a pack of gushers, let's add protein or fiber with it. So it's not just going to spike your blood sugar. And then like, okay, cool. But then I don't, you're not telling me to stop it. I'm like, no, if you like it, let's just make it so it's not going to damage you more. But
And then do you find as you're adding in the more nutrient supporting stuff that they don't want the other things as much?
yes, I have found that. And then they're like, oh, I don't have to have a whole pack of gushers. I can have just 4 or 5 and that'll be cool. I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point. Like not getting to deal or you're binging on the sweets or the chips or whatever it is, and you're still getting what you need and like having the fun little hit.
Yeah. And so I think for a lot of people, it's looking at what purpose does that food serve? And is there a better alternative that's going to get it for you? So the example that I like to use is if you have somebody who's craving chocolate, that's a key indicator and they can't get enough of it, right? I immediately start to look at magnesium. What's the deficiency there? Because they're never going to get enough. So for some folks, it could be as easy as switching out some things so that they're getting more magnesium in their diet. For other folks, it's they're so deficient in supplementation. And then it's figuring out which magnesium would be best for that client.
Yeah.
So that's the easy example. But it's okay, what purpose is the craving serving?
Yeah, that's so true. So like I currently work with a functional doctor and we do the neuromuscular testing where like she'll touch me and see which one is that. Have you had trained like that for yourself?
Where they're looking to see. So I don't have the training. I was just looking into it, but I have 5 trainings going on right now. So I have to postpone. And this is normal for me to be doing like 5 trainings at once. So actually tomorrow it's a spirituality and psychotherapy summit for 2 days. Oh God.
I would love to do that too. Ah, that'd be that's so fun.
But I think that's one of it. So my functional doctor does the same thing. So I totally understand it. She is more based in traditional Chinese medicine. I think she's considered a practitioner. This is their abbreviation, but I think it's a practitioner of Oriental medicine or
Okay.
certified practitioner of Oriental. It's like CPOM or PCO. I don't remember the initials. I have dyslexia, so letters are just a jumble anyhow. I'm like, I can remember all the things that are supposed to come after my own name, but it definitely is that piece where I've actually muscle tested and then gone and gotten blood work done. And what came up in the muscle testing was the same significance of like the actual blood work, like the lab work. And so it's very interesting to me, like how spot on those things are. And I don't love having blood drawn because they bruise. So like we'll muscle test that. And if I need to go get it, then I'll go get it.
Yeah. Although my next question though would be like, since you are virtual right now, would you be getting a physical location?
With enough practice, you can actually key into the other person's energy field and do it remotely.
Oh, cool.
So, like the clinician that I see, there are times where I'm like, I can't get in the office, but I need an answer to this is what's happening. And she will remote in energetically and do the muscle testing and be like, okay, this is what's going on. And then we can move forward from there. And so I would love to be able to do that at some point.
That sounds so freaking amazing. I'm like really dive into that. But
We'll figure it all out. Dive into
that just sounds, oh my God, because you're only like 4 hours away from me. It's not that far.
you in PA?
Yeah, I'm by Pittsburgh.
Oh, you're like, we're just on bookends of the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like,
And then I saw on your website too, because I saw the licensed Pennsylvania, but I also saw, I think, was it Vermont for you?
yeah, I have the Telehealth Vermont license.
Okay. So I had my license in Pennsylvania and then Vermont and New Hampshire because the federally qualified health center, I had to get licensed in Vermont and New Hampshire. So I have those 3 licenses and then I have SciPact. So it's 40 something other states, territories.
Wait, I thought PA wasn't SciPac, a SciPac state though.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. I thought, okay. I was wrong. Okay, I had talked with Jessica the other day. I thought PA wasn't one of them, but never mind. It is one.
SciPact, yes. Some of the other contract agreements for other licenses, I don't know if PA is yet, but I know that it definitely, as soon as it went up, I was like, yes, please. Because I don't know how it works for on your side of like the Pittsburgh side of the state, but because of where I am, we're so close to Jersey for the beaches and Delaware. And it's everybody kind of leaves where I live and goes to those 2 states pretty much for the summer.
Yeah.
Ultimately, having SciPact allows me to keep seeing my clients when they're in other states for vacation. Because otherwise, I would lose half my practice.
There's not many people like leaving Pittsburgh and going to Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland. That doesn't happen as much, but it can, I guess. Like a lot of people like will leave and go down to Florida, or like we go to Jersey every summer for a week because we love Avalon. Like that's our favorite beach to go to.
Asked me to bring a vacation. Yes, my family.
That's just so cool. Do you ever feel like you can tap into your clients' energies whenever you're seeing them virtually?
I do. I try to give them a heads up because sometimes if I have a client who's struggling with sharing something, or if I'm asking what they're feeling and they can't enunciate or can't share what's happening with that emotion, I may key in a little bit and I'll say, feels like this is what's coming up. It still spooks some of them, because they know. But some of them are like, oh my gosh, that's it. I couldn't come up with the word. I couldn't come up with what it was. That's exactly it. So for the most part, most of my clients are aware. The first time it happened, I had a client who was like super, super anxious. And we're in person at the time. And I'm sitting here across from them and I'm like, oh, it feels like there's like a giant rubber band that's just getting cinched tighter around my chest, like my lungs and my chest. And I looked at the client and I go, so I'm wondering if you're feeling a little nervous. And they were like, no. And I was like, so could we try some deep breathing? Because I was like, I just met this person. Like it was an intake. I'm like, I don't want to totally freak him out. But I'm like, the amount of anxiety sitting on your chest is crushing. Right?
Yeah.
So we did some deep breathing and I was like I could feel it released. And the client kind of was like, I've never had a therapist like ask me to breathe like before we even get started. And I said, it just felt like you were really, really anxious. And the client looked at me and goes, it felt like I was anxious. Like, keyed directly into that. And I was like, yeah, like it felt like something was squeezing like around your chest, like keeping you from breathing. And she goes, you could feel that? So like I was immediately like, oh, is this such a bad thing to say to somebody who's brand new? Is this a bad thing to admit to clients? And then I was like, but this is part of therapy and it's part of how I practice. And it's to me, I feel like it's one of the gifts that I was given to help people. And so I don't key into like everybody walking down the street, but sometimes I can pick that energy up and I'm like, hey, this. So
Yeah.
and again, it's like releasing that energy after a session. I'm not keeping you connected to me.
Yeah, that's definitely the important part because I'll be with clients and they'll come to me and they'll be like their face to be like calm and they'll be smiling and then my heart rate will pick up. I'm like, why? Like, what's going on? Like, why are you nervous right now? And they all know that I can key into them. And they always, damn it, I was trying to hide it from you. I'm like, you can't hide it from me. Like, just tell me the truth.
And part of it is like when we're talking about this keying into people's energy, it's part of the co-regulation piece, I think. And so for some of us, I think we have a greater awareness of when that co-regulation is happening, when we're being pulled out of kind of our stable baseline and we're noticing it and we know that it's this person that just came into space with us. And
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing. And we're able to ask about it, but it takes some of the woo out when you really think about how it is connected to co-regulation and what that looks like. And so that's part of it. And I think about therapists who, and I do, but you probably do too. Like I will kind of start to just breathe, slow my breathing down, and a client going to co-regulate off of that, and they start to settle or those kinds of things. So I had 5 other examples and I was like, they're not necessary right now, Kim. Um, but but it's that kind of thing of like when you are in a place where you're level and you're getting pulled into an anxiety or you're getting pulled into sadness, being aware of that heaviness coming in and being able to have that conversation with clients, most of the time they feel really validated. At least that's been my experience. And I think
Yeah.
you're similar. And it takes, I think, some of the pressure off of having to admit to your therapist that something's wrong.
Yeah. Cause like we can already pick up on it and just like we can essentially like, call it out without them feeling like they have to bring it up. We can just be like, okay, we're like, this is what's going on. Like, let's work on it and breathe out, breathe into it. And then I have it be released. Oh my God. This has been so much fun. Like I can start talking for hours. But
Thank you.
but before we wrap up fully, how do you prefer people to find you and connect with you?
They can find me through my website, which is www.birchrunsite.com, or probably that's the best spot. Info at Bertrand Psych, if they wanted to email directly, would be the other one. So info at Bertrand Psych or www.bertrandpsych.com. Now,
Yeah,
there's
I'll,
the two best ways to directly contact me.
awesome. And I'll have all your links in the description below the video too, so everyone can easily find you. But honestly, like everyone, Dr. Kim is amazing. If you haven't noticed with this hour, so reach out to her if you've resonated with her. So thank you so much, Kim. It has been a joy today.
Thank you so much for having me, Kiara. I've had so much fun today.